Welcome back, bug friends. Today I wanted to talk about a potentially scandalous paper that discusses the possibility of either scientific fraud or severe negligence, or a potential third option that was recently published. And this is about a purportedly bioluminescent genus of cockroaches called Lucihormetica. I talked about these roaches maybe a year ago in a short, but they were reported to have two bioluminescent eye spots that were probably used in maybe mate selection or mate detection, something like that. It wasn't entirely sure, but after their discovery and report of this phenomenon, this bioluminescent phenomenon, back in like 1999 and 2002, there was a series of disputes about whether or not these cockroaches were actually bioluminescent. There was a series of papers published in the 2010s about the methodology of these papers that reported the bioluminescence and whether or not it was valid and whether or not any proof was actually offered up. And it developed into this dispute between multiple authors, including the original authors that described the species. The original authors attempted to offer proof about the bioluminescence, and they offered these photos here. But these photos are not of bioluminescence, as the critics point out, but instead show fluorescence of the cockroaches. So these cockroaches do emit a glowing light, but only if you shine UV lights on them. But in the original articles, and what the authors have repeatedly said in the defense of their own work, is that when they collected and observed these roaches, the roaches were in fact bioluminescing, so they were generating their own light through enzymatic processes, particularly in these eye spots. So this dispute went on for years, and just recently a new paper has been published on this topic that seems to be definitive, called A Supposedly Bioluminescent Species of Cockroach That Would Not Glow, a Case of Scientific Fraud, Erroneous Observation, or Bacterial Infection. And they've done a very thorough job of making their point in that they purchased a bunch of these roaches and then kept them in colony for 6 months. And at no point in those 6 months did these cockroaches glow. They still fluoresce under UV light, but they do not produce any bioluminescence. And they compare this to the elad-pterid Pyrophorus noctilucis, which is sometimes called the cucubano. These are the click beetles that have the big glowing eye spots on them, and they actually do fluoresce, or they do bioluminesce, similar to fireflies. The authors are pretty straightforward that they think that something odd has kind of happened here, which is either the form of scientific fraud, that the original authors of these species descriptions were just making things up in order to be the first to describe a cockroach that had bioluminescence, or that there was some sort of negligence, possibly that they didn't understand the difference between fluorescence under UV light and bioluminescence being the generation of light under their own power using some sort of enzymatic process. But they did offer an out, which is possible, which is that there are known bacterial infections, specifically of cockroaches, that do glow. So the thought here is that, well, maybe these cockroaches were carrying some sort of bacterial colony that caused them to glow. And this is possible. Maybe there was some sort of infection in the original specimens which were recorded and described. And maybe if the authors in the current paper talking about the supposed failure of bioluminescence, maybe the specimens that they got of these roaches were raised in a sterile environment and they did not have these bacterial infection or these bacterial symbiotes or what have you. And there are similar stories of this with other creatures. So something like pufferfish or fugu, known for how toxic its flesh can be if prepared wrong, is only toxic when it is caught wild because of the toxins it accumulates from a bacterial symbiote that doesn't occur when these pufferfish are raised in captivity or raised through farming practices because it's a more sterile environment. There is something else like Elysia sea slugs. These are a type of sea slug that embed the chlorophyll from algae that they eat into their own skin, and then the chlorophyll are capable of photosynthesizing. So these are actually photosynthetic animals. They can't produce their own chlorophyll, but because they can sustain the chlorophyll and chloroplasts within their own skin and within their own body, they can take advantage of this sort of process. And something like this might be happening with these roaches in the wild, assuming that there hasn't been fraud or negligence. Maybe these cockroaches are purposely keeping some sort of bacterial symbiote around, or maybe they are collecting luciferin and luciferase from other insects or from sources in their environment like glowing fungi and depositing it in these eye spots. But if it isn't the case that this is happening, we still don't know what these eye spots are for. Before, we thought maybe they were for glowing. Now, who knows what it's for? Maybe it's still for mate selection. But it would seem that all of this previous work that had been done needs to be thrown out and things need to be kind of started over from scratch. Why there would be scientific fraud in this case, I don't know. I don't know other than trying to be the first to report this interesting phenomenon. But to make up a phenomenon like this whole cloth seems very strange. It's not like you're making money from this. It's a strange situation all over. But it does seem definitive now that that these roaches are not bioluminescent. So hopefully we'll figure out what caused all this, but no longer can we consider this order naturally bioluminescent. With that, please like and subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys later.